Girl was nervous at the hospital. Doctor takes X-ray and begins to panic. Chapter 1, The Waiting Room. The hospital waiting room felt colder than the December air outside. Lila Harrison, 12 years old and too young to be sitting here alone, clutched her backpack to her chest as if it could shield her from what might come next. Her feet, still in worn-out school sneakers with fraying laces, didn't quite touch the floor. She'd lied to her school counselor. Said she had a dentist appointment. She'd even smiled, that same closed-lip smile she gave when teachers asked too many questions. But now she sat here in silence, replaying in her mind how Mrs. Calloway's face had shifted ever so slightly when she'd asked, "Is everything all right at home, Lila?" She hadn't answered. Not really. Lila glanced down at her wrist. Her pink plastic watch, a birthday gift from her aunt, blinked 4:19 p.m. Her science project was still in her locker, unfinished, a model of the solar system made from old tennis balls and wire coat hangers. She was supposed to stay after school today to finish painting Saturn's rings. Mrs. Howard had even offered her glitter. Instead, she was here. Alone. Again. Across the room, two nurses spoke quietly behind a glass window. One of them looked up and caught Lila's eye, then turned and whispered something to the other. A form was passed. A door buzzed. A name called. Not hers. Not yet. Lila's stomach tightened again, a dull, curling sensation low in her belly. It had started a few weeks ago. Then came the nausea in the mornings, the headaches, the dizzy spells. She had told no one. Not even her best friend Kendra. Especially not Kendra. Her mom hadn't noticed. Not really. She worked the night shift at the bottle factory and slept most of the day. The last time they'd sat down together was 2 Fridays ago, when the lights went out and they'd eaten cereal by candlelight. Lila looked at the form in her hand. A referral from the school nurse, signed off in shaky blue ink. Persistent abdominal discomfort. Imaging recommended. Possible growth. Unclear. She hated that word. Growth. Like something crawling inside her, slowly expanding. She'd overheard 2 teachers whispering in the hallway last week, something about delayed development and family history. They'd stopped talking when she walked by. One of them gave her that same look the nurse had just now. Half worry, half something else she couldn't name. When the door finally opened and the nurse called her name, Lila stood too quickly and had to steady herself. Her backpack thudded against her leg as she followed the woman down a quiet, humming corridor. The walls were lined with children's drawings, flowers with smiling faces, misshapen cats, a rainbow with the word hope scrawled above it in crayon. The nurse was kind. She had warm eyes. "Is this your first time getting an X-ray, sweetie?" she asked. Lila nodded. But it wasn't fear of the machine that made her hands shake. It was what they might find. Chapter 2, The Scan. The X-ray room was colder than the hallway. The nurse helped Lila climb onto the narrow padded table. "Just lie still, okay? The machine's a little noisy, but it doesn't hurt." She smiled, gently pushing Lila's hair behind her ear like a mother might. "Dr. Kessler will be in soon." Dr. Kessler. Lila remembered his name from the clipboard. It was written at the top in all capital letters, followed by a long string of letters she didn't understand. He was older, she thought, or at least he sounded old. She imagined a balding man with tired eyes and a gentle voice. Instead, when he walked in, he looked younger than her principal. Tall, sharp features, silver-rimmed glasses. His white coat had a faint coffee stain on the pocket. He didn't smile when he greeted her. "Lila, right?" His voice was flat, clipped. He glanced at her chart, then back at her. "You're 12. She nodded. Are you currently experiencing any pain? She hesitated. Sometimes. Where? She pointed to her lower stomach, just below her belly button. Mostly here. And sometimes my back. It's like a pulling feeling. He scribbled something quickly on his clipboard. Any bleeding? She blinked. Bleeding? He paused, looked up. Something flickered behind his glasses. Never mind. He turned to the nurse. Let's take the scan. The machine buzzed to life. Lila lay perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the ceiling tiles, one of which had a tiny sticker of a yellow duck, half peeled. She counted the seconds in her head, then lost track when a strange coldness spread through her chest. The scan was over quickly. Dr. Kessler muttered something to the nurse and stepped out of the room with the images in hand. Lila sat up, clutching her sweater to her chest. The nurse handed her a cup of water. You did great, she said. Just wait here a moment while the doctor looks at your scans. The door clicked shut behind her. Lila was alone again. She looked at the walls. There were no pictures in this room, only charts showing skeletons and lungs and the outline of a body that looked too much like hers. She could hear voices faintly from behind the wall. A man's voice. Then a woman's. Then silence. When Dr. Kessler returned, his face was different. He didn't look confused. He looked alert. Tight. Like someone who had just realized something very important, and didn't know what to do with it. He sat down slowly on the stool across from her. His hands were empty. Lila, he said carefully, I'm going to need to run a few more tests. She blinked. Is something wrong? He hesitated. I'm not sure yet, he said. But I need to speak with another doctor. You'll be here just a little longer, okay? I'll have someone bring you a snack. She nodded slowly. He stood, reached for the door, then paused. Without turning around, he added quietly, You haven't been feeling sick in the mornings, have you? Her breath caught in her throat. He didn't wait for an answer. Chapter 3, Behind the Door. The snack was a carton of apple juice and a pack of saltine crackers. A different nurse, older, less gentle, brought it in on a tray and placed it on the chair beside Lila. She didn't say much, just gave her a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then the door clicked shut again. Lila sipped the juice slowly. Her fingers trembled slightly as she peeled back the foil seal. She hated apple juice. It reminded her of the time she had the flu in second grade and had thrown up on her math workbook. The room had no windows. Just the soft hum of a vent and the click of voices beyond the walls. She tried to listen, pressing her ear closer to the wall, but the voices were muffled. Still, she could make out her name. Twice. Once in the low voice of Dr. Kessler. Once in a higher voice, a woman's, sharp and urgent. 12, impossible. No history, not on record. She didn't say anything. Lila pulled away from the wall. Her heart thudded. She didn't know what they were talking about. But she knew they were talking about her. She looked down at her hands, pale, thin, fingers flecked with glitter from art class earlier that day. They didn't look like the hands of someone who was sick. But something was happening. She could feel it. The pulling in her stomach was back. Not pain exactly, more like a strange tightness, like her insides were rearranging themselves. She thought about the hallway again. The children's drawings. The word hope in purple crayon. And then something came to her, sharp and sudden. In health class, 2 weeks ago, they'd watched a video about the human body. About reproductive changes. Everyone had giggled and rolled their eyes. Lila had laughed too, but it made her feel weird, unsettled. Later that night, she'd stared at her ceiling and whispered, "That won't happen to me for a long time, right?" But what if it already had? She reached for her backpack and slowly unzipped the front pocket. Inside was her school planner, a notebook with doodles all over it, and the envelope the school nurse had given her, the one with her referral papers. She hadn't opened it until now. Inside were copies of forms, a short letter, and one printed sheet with a box circled in red ink. Further imaging required. Abnormal density in lower abdomen. Patient reports morning nausea. Note, no known trauma or prior diagnosis. Consider rare developmental anomaly. Anomaly. The word again. She hated how they kept using it. Like she wasn't a person, just a puzzle. Just then, the door opened. This time, it wasn't Dr. Kessler. It was a woman in a navy blue blazer with a laminated badge clipped to her collar. She didn't look like a nurse or a doctor. She looked like someone from the school district. "Hi, Lila. I'm Ms. Delaney," the woman said softly, sitting in the same chair the tray had been on. "I'm here just to ask a few questions, okay?" Lila didn't respond. She clutched her backpack tighter. Ms. Delaney smiled gently. "Nothing bad. Just a little talk. I know this might feel scary. Am I sick?" Lila asked. The woman hesitated. Her fingers laced together in her lap. "We're still trying to figure that out." "Then, have you ever had a secret, Lila? Something you didn't tell anyone because you were afraid they wouldn't believe you?" Lila blinked. The woman leaned forward slightly. "Sometimes, people your age go through things they don't fully understand. And that's okay. You're not in trouble. I just need to know if there's anything you've been keeping to yourself. Anything unusual. At home, or at school. Anything that didn't make sense." Lila's mouth felt dry. She wanted to tell her about the night 2 weeks ago, when she'd woken up and felt something strange move under her skin, just below her ribs. How she'd looked in the mirror and thought her body didn't look quite the same anymore. But she hadn't told anyone. Because it sounded crazy. And because deep down, she was afraid it wasn't. But all she said was, "No." Ms. Delaney studied her for a moment, then gave a small nod. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." And just like that, she was gone. Lila stared at the door for a long time after it closed. Something was happening. Something no one wanted to say out loud. Chapter 4, How Far Along? The hallway outside her room had changed. Voices no longer passed by in waves, they seemed hushed now, cautious. As if everyone was walking on eggshells. Lila sat curled up on the padded chair in the corner, knees to her chest, her school cardigan wrapped tightly around her. The apple juice remained untouched on the tray. She didn't know how long it had been since Ms. Delaney left. An hour? Maybe more. The air felt thick. Like the hospital itself was holding its breath. A soft knock. Then the door opened just a crack. It wasn't the doctor. Not the nurse. It was a man in green scrubs with a cart of supplies. He looked young, maybe barely out of college, with earbuds dangling from his collar and a pen stuck behind one ear. "Oh, sorry, kiddo. Didn't know someone was still in here." He pushed the cart halfway in. "Just need to restock the gloves and wipes. I'll be quick." Lila said nothing. She watched him move around the small cabinet in the corner. He didn't look at her, not until he reached for the upper shelf and mumbled something under his breath. They really should have moved her to OB by now. Lila blinked. "What's OB?" He froze. For a beat too long. Then he smiled, too quickly. "Oh, Just different wing. You know. More comfortable rooms. Sometimes when kids are being monitored closely, they get sent over there for privacy. He was a terrible liar. She knew it. Felt it. The cart wheels squeaked as he backed toward the door. Hang in there, okay? The door shut again. This time, harder than before. O.B. She didn't know what it meant. But something about the way he'd said it, the way he'd avoided her eyes, made her stomach twist again. They think I'm pregnant. She didn't want to believe it. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. She didn't even know how that worked, not really. She'd heard rumors from the girls in 7th grade, half-truths whispered in bathrooms and locker rooms, but they all sounded like something from a scary movie. And anyway, there was no one. No boy. Not ever. So why were they looking at her like that? She reached for her backpack again. Dug into the front pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, her school schedule. Math, reading, art, lunch, social studies. Normal things. Things 12-year-olds were supposed to be thinking about. Not this. There was a mirror above the sink. She stood slowly and walked toward it. She didn't look different. Not really. Her face was pale, a little thinner than usual, but her body, it still looked like hers. But when she pressed her palm gently against her stomach, it felt firmer. Rounder? Or was she imagining it? That's when she noticed the door. Not the one leading out into the hallway. A smaller one, just beside the cabinet. Barely visible, maybe for staff use only. But it was open a crack. And through that crack, she heard voices. Familiar ones. Dr. Kessler. And someone else. She crept closer. The voices were low, urgent. But she's 12, Dan. 12. We have protocols for this. I know, Kessler said, sounding tired. But I'm telling you, the scan is real. The structure is there. It's measurable. And if the secondary test confirms it, then what? Do we call the police? Social services? Do we even know what we're looking at? A pause. Then. Not yet. But it doesn't look normal. The woman's voice dropped. You mean, not human? Lila's breath caught. But before she could move, the door creaked. She stumbled backward, knocking over the metal tray on the exam table with a crash. The voices stopped. Footsteps. The secret door opened wider. Dr. Kessler stood there, his face white. Lila. He didn't look angry. He looked afraid. Chapter 5, The Transfer. Dr. Kessler didn't yell. He didn't even move. He just stared at Lila with the kind of expression you might give a puzzle piece that doesn't fit, one that should make sense but doesn't. Behind him, the other woman, the one with the sharp voice, pulled the door gently shut again. Too late. Lila had heard it all. Am I dying? She asked. Kessler blinked. What? You said it's not normal. That I have something. Her voice cracked. That it's not human. A silence fell over the room. He stepped forward, slowly, like she was a deer about to bolt. No one said you were dying, Lila, he said softly. We're just being cautious. Sometimes scans show things we don't expect. Sometimes, anomalies. There it was again. That word. Anomaly. Like she was a glitch. A typo in the world. But I feel fine, she whispered. Just tired. And sore. But not sick. Not like when people are really sick. He sat on the edge of the exam table. For the first time, he looked human, tired, frayed at the edges. "I know," he said. "And that's part of what's so unusual." He opened a file and slid it toward her. X-ray prints. She didn't know how to read them, but she could see the shape of her own ribs, the curve of her spine, and something beneath that. A shadow. A vague rounded shape near her pelvis, faint but definite. She pointed at it. "What is that?" He hesitated. "Then, that's what we're trying to understand." Before she could respond, a knock came at the main door. Another nurse, this one tall, stone-faced, with her hair in a tight bun, stepped in with a wheelchair. "Ready for transfer, Dr. Kessler." "Transfer? To where?" Lila asked. "The West Wing," the nurse said crisply. "Observation Room B. More private. More comfortable." Lila didn't move. Her heart pounded. "I don't want to go." "It's just a short trip," Kessler said. "Nothing scary. We'll be right there with you." The nurse stepped forward. "It's policy." Policy. Another word grown-ups used when they didn't want to explain things. Lila clenched her fists. She didn't want to sit in a wheelchair. She didn't want to be moved like a piece of furniture. She didn't want any of this. So she ran. It wasn't graceful or fast, just instinct. She pushed past the nurse, ducked under the doctor's arm, and sprinted out into the hallway in her socks. The floor was cold. Lights overhead flickered in long rows. She passed a nurse's station, a vending machine, a faded painting of sunflowers, and two orderlies who called after her. She didn't stop. She didn't even know where she was going. Until she found a sign that said Records/Administration. She ducked inside, breathless. No one was at the desk. She crouched low and scanned the drawers. Most were locked. But one near the end wasn't. She pulled it open. Inside, folders. Patient names. Tabs. Codes. She looked for her own. Lila Marin. There. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it out. Inside were test results, scan images, notes. Her name was on everything, but something was off. There were dates in the file from before she was born. April 2010. February 2009. December 2008. She stared. That couldn't be right. She was born in 2013. So why were there records from years before? She flipped to the back of the file, and her breath froze in her throat. There was a photo. Of a girl. A girl who looked just like her. Same eyes. Same hair. Wearing a hospital gown in front of a white wall. Expression blank. A handwritten note below the photo. Subject 7C. Represented with matched vitals. Watch closely for replication. Then footsteps. Someone was coming. She shoved the file back and ran, heart pounding, not knowing where to go next, only that nothing in this hospital made sense anymore. Chapter 6, The Mirror Room. The orderly who found her didn't speak. He just appeared in the hallway, too quietly, too quickly. She turned a corner and there he was, tall, pale, wearing white scrubs with a black badge clipped to his collar. Not a name. Just a number, A31. Before she could run, he raised one hand, not in threat, but almost like apology. "Don't struggle," he said. "It only makes them move you faster." Them? Before she could ask, he stepped back and gestured to a second hallway. Not toward the elevators, or the front entrance. Deeper into the West Wing, into the part of the hospital with no windows. She was too tired to resist now. Her body obeyed without her. They passed a nurse who didn't even look up. A row of gurneys covered with blue sheets. A door that required a keycard. Then another. Then a heavy door with no sign at all. When it opened, she was inside a room lined with mirrors. Not windows. Not cameras. Mirrors. 2 chairs. 1 table. No bed. She turned slowly, heart thumping. It was like a police interrogation room, but without the light bulb and the cigarette smoke. Only her reflection stared back, multiplied again and again. 10 versions of herself, all looking just as frightened. Why mirrors? The door shut behind her. Click. Locked. She sat on the edge of one of the chairs, wrapping her arms around herself, shivering. Time passed. How long, she didn't know. Finally, the other door opened. A woman stepped in. She looked nothing like a nurse. No badge, no clipboard. She wore all black, even her shoes, and had her hair tied in a smooth, silver bun. Her eyes were pale green. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Lila. The girl didn't respond. You must have questions. She nodded. Slowly. The woman sat opposite her. Set a metal object on the table, small, round, like a tape recorder. She didn't press anything. Just let it sit there. You're very special, Lila. Has anyone ever told you that? The girl said nothing. The woman continued. Sometimes, very rare cases happen. A body that functions differently. A mind that resists patterns. Children like you are statistically impossible. And yet here you are. I'm not pregnant, Lila said. The woman tilted her head. That's not the question we're asking. But it's interesting you think it is. She reached into a slim file folder and pulled out a photo. Lila recognized it instantly. It was from her school. A class picture. Except, it wasn't hers. The uniforms were older. The style of clothes, outdated. And the girl in the second row, she looked exactly like her. Exactly. Not similar. Identical. I don't understand, Lila whispered. The woman smiled. Of course you don't. That's why you're here. She slid the photo closer. Her name was Anna. Same face. Same blood type. Same markers. She disappeared in 2001. Lila swallowed. But I was born in 2013. Yes, the woman said calmly. Exactly. The silence that followed was loud. Then. Do you remember anything from before 3rd grade? Lila blinked. What? Anything before Mrs. Granger's class. Before you switched schools. Any birthdays? Family photos? Baby pictures? She tried. Images flickered. Balloons. A cake. A voice. But nothing clear. And then she realized, she couldn't remember how she got her name. Lila. Had anyone ever said where it came from? She stood suddenly, backing away from the table. You're lying, she said. The woman just smiled. Then she pressed a button beneath the table. And behind one of the mirrors, something moved. Not a person. Not a shadow. But a shape. A bulge in the reflective glass. Like something breathing on the other side. Lila stared, frozen. Her reflection shimmered. Then the lights flickered. Chapter 7, A Sound That Isn't Hers. Lila sat on the edge of the padded exam table again. But this time, it wasn't like before. The room was colder. The walls were dull gray. The nurse didn't speak to her. Just entered, prepped a machine with gloved fingers, and applied a thick, cold gel to Lila's lower abdomen. She'd said nothing about what the test was for. Lila didn't ask. She already knew. The machine flickered to life. Its screen pulsed with a low blue light, not the kind you saw in movies or at regular hospitals. This monitor had no labels. No cheerful stickers. No brands. Just a symbol etched in the corner of the screen. A circle. With a single vertical line bisecting it. The nurse moved the probe across her skin. Left. Right. Slower now. Lila looked away, at the ceiling. But then she heard it. A sound. Not the normal kind of sound. Not the heartbeat beat beat like she'd heard during biology week when they'd shown clips of unborn babies. This wasn't rhythmic. It was layered. Wet. Pulsing. Hollow. Like several heartbeats, overlapping. Whispering. The nurse stiffened. Moved the probe. Adjusted settings. The sound shifted, deepened. Echoed. Lila turned her head toward the screen. She saw movement. A shape in the center of the black, too large to be nothing, too small to make sense. It was rounded, curled. But not quite human. Not quite fetal. It twitched. So did she. The nurse pulled the probe away suddenly and turned off the screen. The sound vanished. The room fell into silence. Everything okay? Lila asked, her voice dry. The nurse didn't meet her eyes. I'll get the doctor. And she left. The door clicked shut. Lila wiped the gel off with a trembling hand and looked at her stomach again. It did look a little swollen. A little wrong. Or maybe she was imagining that too. No one will tell me the truth. She slid off the table and looked toward the cabinet. The screen was still warm. She hesitated. Then reached over and pressed the button again. The screen blinked on. Blue static. Then an image. It took a second to load, slow, grainy. There it was again. That shape. A small ripple. Still. Dark. She squinted. And something moved inside it. Not twitched. Moved. Like it saw her. Like it knew it was being watched. She staggered back. Then, the screen shut itself off. Not power failure. Not an error. Just, off. And from behind the mirror glass on the wall, a sound began to hum. Low. Electric. Pulsing. She ran to the door. Pulled. Locked. Her reflection stared back at her, again and again, and she wasn't sure anymore if it was really her. Was that her hair? Her eyes? Her face? Had it always been? She screamed. But no one came. Chapter 8, The Notebook. The next morning. Hi, Lila. Who are you? My name's Cal. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not even part of the hospital. Not really. She frowned. Then why are you here? Cal placed the leather notebook on her lap. You left this. Lila blinked. She didn't own a notebook. She hadn't written in months. Had she? She looked down. The notebook had no name. No logo. Just deep brown leather, worn at the edges. She opened the first page. Her handwriting. Her name. Lila Marin in blue ink. And beneath it, a sentence. If I forget again, tell them, I remembered once. Her breath caught. She flipped the next few pages. Drawings. Of her school. Of lockers. Of a tree behind the music room. Then, a sketch of her math teacher's eyes. And a dog she didn't recognize. Then, shapes. Strange circles. Lines. A spiral drawn again and again. And something inside the spiral. A figure. Curled. She turned another page. A sentence repeated, growing less legible each time. They said it's a baby. But it dreams. It dreams through me. It shows me places I've never been. She slammed the notebook shut. What is this? She whispered. Cal looked at her gently. We found it during one of your episodes. My what? You don't remember those, either. What do you mean, episodes? He leaned forward. You've been here before, Lila. Not just this week. Not just this year. No, that's not true. I live with my dad. I go to Juniper Hill Middle School. But the words felt empty. Rehearsed. Do you? Cal asked. She stood up. Get out. But he didn't move. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a photo. A group shot, children in matching uniforms, standing in front of an institutional-looking building. A banner above read, The 8th Generation Project. And there she was again. Far right. Same face. Same height. Same expression. Dated, September 2023. She stared at it. That's not me. It is. No. Cal stood now. He didn't touch her. But he said. You've been waking up from this for years. And they keep resetting you. Each time you get closer. Each time it grows faster. She froze. What grows? He nodded toward her stomach. Then whispered. Ask it yourself. Chapter 9, The Voice Beneath. Lila sat on the edge of her bed for hours after Cal left, the notebook clutched to her chest. She didn't open it again. She didn't need to. Every word she'd read, every drawing, every spiral, had burned itself into her memory like a hot wire. It throbbed behind her eyes. They said it's a baby. But it dreams. Her stomach gurgled. Not like hunger. Not like sickness. Like movement. She pressed her hands against it. Stillness. Then. You're awake. Her head jerked up. She looked around. No one. No speaker. No intercom. You can hear me now. It wasn't a sound in the room. It was a pressure in her skull. A vibration behind her eyes, her ears. The voice was neither male nor female, but had a tone that knew her. I'm going crazy, she thought. No. Not crazy. Just remembering. She stood up, knocking the notebook to the floor. Pages splayed out. Across the room, the lights flickered. Again. Lila backed into the wall. Who are you? No answer. She ran to the door. It was unlocked. Hallway empty. She ran. Past the nurse station. Past the shuttered cafeteria. The walls were humming again, just faintly, a pulse in the pipes, in the vents, in the bones of the building. She turned a corner. And froze. Two nurses stood in front of a window. Silent. Not moving. Watching the parking lot below. Then one of them turned and whispered something to the other. Lila was too far to hear. But both women nodded in perfect unison. Then one said, clearly, distinctly, as if knowing Lila could hear. "She's listening now." Lila backed away. The humming grew louder. She ducked into a stairwell. Heart racing. And there, lying on the concrete, was another notebook. Identical. Brown leather. Worn edges. She picked it up. Inside, different handwriting. Not hers. Not Cal's. But similar spirals. Similar drawings. This time, a sentence written in red ink. "They grew it in me too. But I didn't make it." Below, a second note. "They said it needs a womb. But it wants a mind." Lila dropped the book. Footsteps echoed above. She looked up. A shadow moved on the landing above her. Too tall. Too still. It leaned slightly forward. Watching. She ran. Down the stairs. Out a door. Into another hallway. And behind her, a low, breathing sound. Mechanical. Wet. Chapter 10, Room 217. She found it by accident. The hallway curved unexpectedly, ending in a blank metal door with a flickering red tag above it, 217. All the other doors had glass windows. Not this one. No clipboard. No staff name. Just a dull keypad beside the frame. She reached out, expecting resistance. But the door clicked open. Not locked. She stepped inside. The light was dim, bluish, low, like twilight. The air was warmer here. Humid. The room smelled like graphite and plastic. Like pencil shavings. And something else. Old metal. Her shoes crunched against the floor. She looked down, paper. Pages torn from notebooks, scattered in heaps. Drawings. Dozens of them. All the same shape. That spiral again. Sometimes round. Sometimes stretched. Sometimes with teeth. On the far wall, there were words scratched in with something sharp, over and over again in blocky handwriting. "She's not first. She's not the first. I was before." Lila turned. A cot stood against the wall. A faded hospital bracelet lay on the mattress, stained and snapped in half. She picked it up. The name. Marin, Lena. Her breath caught. Lena. It was her name. Almost. Her name was Lila. But this was Lena. Or was it? She sat slowly on the cot, still clutching the bracelet. Something in the far corner of the room made a soft click. She turned her head. A small tape recorder sat on the windowsill, old and gray, like the kind detectives used in old shows. A post-it note was stuck to it. Faded. Day 34. The dreams are bleeding into the day now. She pressed play. Static. Then breathing. Then a girl's voice. Younger. Scared. But steady. I can feel it moving sometimes. Not like a baby, not like a thing. Like a room. Like I'm not carrying it. I'm inside it. And it's making me forget what I was. They say it's normal. They say I'm just emotional. But they lie with their eyes. It dreams. I see what it dreams. Click. Tape ended. Lila sat still. Frozen. Was that her voice? Or someone else's? Suddenly, the door to the room slammed shut. She jumped up, ran to it. Pulled. Locked. Again. She turned, heart racing, and saw movement. The corner of the room darkened. Not with shadow. With something thicker. A flicker. Like water pulling away light. Then a voice. "You're not the first." Lila gasped. The voice wasn't just in her mind this time. It came from the walls. The room was speaking. "But you're the one who listens." Then silence. Complete. She slid to the floor, the bracelet still in her hand, the name repeating itself behind her eyes. Lena. Lila. Lena. Lila. Was she the same girl? Was she the next one? Was she the only one left? Chapter 11, The File in the Wall. The lights came back on with a sharp buzz. Room 217 looked normal again. Too normal. Like it had never been used. But the papers were still there. The bracelet too. Lila stepped forward, heart thudding. Something itched behind her left eye, like pressure. Like something watching her from inside. She began pacing, hands on the walls, fingertips running along the edges of the paneling. A hollow sound. Knuckles tapped, once, twice. Thock. She stopped. Pressed harder. Then dug in with her nails. The panel gave way with a soft creak, revealing a shallow compartment filled with plastic folders. Dustless. Untouched. She pulled them out one by one. Each marked with a single letter. L. Inside, photos, test results, brain scans, printed emails, psychiatric assessments. She flipped through them quickly. They weren't just about her. They were about versions of her. Marin, Lila, Subject L, 7. Date of entry, May 2018. Status, null response. Terminated. Marin, Lila, Subject L, 9. Date of entry, March 2020. Status, overlap instability. Memory bleed. Discontinued. Marin, Lila, Subject L, 11. Date of entry, January 2024. Status, high compatibility. Sustained host stability. Viable. There were 10 before her. Or maybe she had been some of them. She turned the next page and saw a photo. A scan. Of a small, rounded shape deep in a human torso. Next to it, a label. Gestational echo anomaly number 11, non-fetal, dream-active entity. Her hands trembled. In red ink someone had scribbled. Not pregnancy. Not tumor. Not parasitic. Sentient. Memory linked. Another photo, a girl's face. Not hers, but close. Too close. The caption read. Subject L8, retained dream content through awakening. Eyes no longer matched baseline. The girl in the photo had silver irises. Lila dropped the folder. Then noticed the final page, falling loose from inside. It was a note. Handwritten. If you're reading this, you got farther than the others. But it's not over. It dreams because of you. It grows where your memories should be. And when it finishes dreaming, it wakes. The lights began to hum again. Then a sharp click, the door unlocking. She turned, but no one was there. Only the hallway. Only silence. And from inside her skull, a voice, calm. Slow. Not cruel. Not angry. Just present. Almost home. Chapter 12, The Wake. The hallway didn't look like a hallway anymore. The paint peeled in real time. The ceiling bent downward like soft plastic under heat. Somewhere, a siren, distorted and distant, moaned once and cut off. Lila walked forward anyway. The file still in her hand. Her name stamped in every page. But it wasn't her name anymore. She passed a mirror, cracked, and stopped. Her reflection didn't move. It stood perfectly still. Smiling. Lila backed away. The lights pulsed. Something hissed, like breathing through water. And the walls began to throb. Not metaphorically. Literally. The hallway stretched ahead, and suddenly she was standing before a door that hadn't been there before. Huge. Metal. Cold. No handle. Only a scanner. She held up the file. A green light flickered. Access granted. The door slid open. She stepped through. And froze. It was a room the size of a gymnasium. Stainless steel walls. No windows. In the center, a tank. Glowing blue. Inside the tank floated something shaped like a girl. Small. Fragile. Curled into a fetal position. Wires ran from her spine into machines pulsing with light. Above her, a single word blinked on a display. L12, host condition stable. Dream active. The girl inside, was her. Identical. Lila stumbled backward. No, she whispered. She turned, and standing behind her were two doctors. Faces hidden by masks. One of them said. You weren't supposed to wake up. She screamed, ran toward the wall, and found another mirror. Only this time, she saw nothing. No reflection. Because she wasn't there. She looked down at her hands. They were becoming light. Transparent. Flickering. Behind her, the tank hissed. The girl inside began to open her eyes. Silver. Shining. Familiar. You were never the dreamer, a voice said. Not from the room. From inside. You were the dream. Lila dropped to her knees. And the room. The hospital. The world. Folded inward, like a photograph burning at the edges. Blackness bloomed. And then. Final chapter, the room with no exit. There was no light now. No sound. Only a weightless silence, like being submerged under deep, black water. Then a breath. One. Then another. She was lying on something soft. Not a bed. A surface. Warm. Breathing. She opened her eyes. The sky above her was wrong. Too smooth. Too flat. Too perfect. Like someone had painted it just for her. She sat up. Around her, trees without leaves. Buildings without windows. Streets that led into blank whiteness. No wind. No sun. Just the hum of memory trying to be real. She remembered the tank. The girl inside. Herself. And the voice. You were the dream. She looked down. Her hands were solid again. But there were no fingerprints. Just skin. Like someone had designed her. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the night sky. Soft. Calm. But layered. Like several people speaking in perfect sync. Welcome back, Lila. You are stable. You are complete. You are ready for reintegration. Lila stood. No, she said quietly. I want to go home. Silence. Then. There is no home. You were the home. And now, you will become the gate. She ran. The landscape did not move. Everything repeated. Same tree. Same path. Same faded school poster nailed to an invisible wall. She passed it again. And again. Every time, the image on the poster changed slightly. First, her school photo. Then her ultrasound. Then, something in between. Something looking out from inside her. She stopped. She screamed. And suddenly, someone was holding her. Soft arms. Gentle voice. A woman. Older. The kind face of someone who could be her mother. I remember you, Lila whispered. But the woman shook her head. No. You remember what she felt. That's not the same. Lila's knees buckled. What am I? The woman, or whatever she was, brushed Lila's hair back behind her ear. You're what we dreamed to carry it through. You were never pregnant, sweet girl. But you felt like you were, because something inside needed to teach us what it would mean to be born. Tears welled in Lila's eyes. But I felt it. I felt it moving. I felt it growing. Yes, the woman said softly. Because it was using you to learn what it meant to be alive. The sky began to shake. The trees flickered. The woman smiled, sadly. It's waking now. And you're fading. Lila looked at her hands again. They were dust. Floating upward like ash. I don't want to go, she whispered. I know, the woman said. But you were never here. A pause. Then the last word, quiet as breath. Goodbye, Lila. And the world ended. But somewhere, far away. Something opened its eyes. Silver. And began to dream its own first dream.